your gift is not necessarily your purpose. For some people, it is. Some people have a gift of being a footballer or a soccer player, and they just need to score goals so their team can win. And that's all they want to live for. That's all they've done, and that's it. And that's fine. But then there's people like myself where I don't know where the spirit of laughter came from, where I will open my mouth and say things where I think it's just mediocre. It's normal conversation, but people are laughing their heads off. This is beyond the stage. But then I see it as a gift. That's something that's been given to me. Now my purpose is what I do with that gift.
Welcome to Africa and Us. I'm your host, Nathan Orion. On today's show, we have Eddie Kadi. Born in the DR Congo in 1983, Eddie Kadi moved to the UK at the age of 8, where he grew up in West London. While studying media technology at Kingston University in Surrey, Eddie Kadi began hosting stand-up shows, which further cemented that entertaining people seem to come naturally, and he's never looked back since. He's a household name within the British comedy scene and the first British black comedian to headline the O2 Arena. He has performed across Africa from Congo to Zanzibar and appeared on TV shows in Uganda, Ghana, Congo, Kenya, and Nigeria. I spoke with Eddie over Skype about the keys to his comedic success, touring with Lauryn Hill and Nas, and how important it is for him to remain unashamed and unapologetically authentic. This is Africa and Us. So Eddie, you're in London and we're doing this over Skype. How's everything going on your end?
We thank God for technology, bro. We thank God for technology. Things are going real good. Real good on my end. I can't complain.
So let's just take it to the very beginning. You moved from Congo to London at the age of 8. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I didn't move, man. I got moved. When you're that young, man, you have no choice. When you're that young, you're running around. Every time it rains, you're running around with your friends. You're watching your uncles once a month climb up a big, what looked like a massive mango tree right in the middle of the compound. You're going to school, you're spending time with your grandma, you're having a great time. Like, you're free. And then, suddenly they've come to us and you've got to move for reasons that you don't understand. But, you have to move because you've got no choice. So I've left essentially my sort of what I felt a good routine for an 8-year-old to move into a cold place. It was very cold, and I mean by the weather. Actually, I felt like some of the people were cold starting off in primary school, to be fair, because I couldn't understand the language, because everything seemed all of a sudden so controlled and restricted and so much smaller. I couldn't run around like I used to. I didn't feel a sense of community like I used to, when I was young. And it's like, but I think the main thing I was dealing with was just the sort of language and the culture shock at the time. But being a kid, you kind of just slowly, you don't even realize, you just find yourself kind of adapting, and making it work. And the confidence of a child is what helps you to survive that early stage.
What helped you build that confidence growing up, dealing with the society, the generation at the moment, the cultural barriers? What helped you build that confidence?
I was always very attached to my culture. I think even as a young kid, to be fair, bro, more than any other kid that I know, to be fair. Like, I was always attached to my culture. I was always happy speaking my language. I mean, I spoke French and Lingala, my mother tongue. Lingala to my parents, French was academic in school. So when I came here, I kind of realized very quickly that they were impressed by the fact that I spoke French. So I really made it work in school. And I mean, at that age, I couldn't serenade any young lady. But I still kind of knew very quickly that they were very impressed with the use of my language. And the more I kind of learned the language, the more I was able to communicate better. But I was never afraid to just be me. I think that was very important. Naively, it was never intent. It was just what I knew best.
Right. I'm sure growing up, there were so many challenges and things that you wished you could be. How did you realize your love for comedy?
Actually, once I got into comedy is when I realized some of the greats were comedians. as a matter of fact. So a lot of people, I caught them at a stage of them being great actors in the Eddie Murphys, in the Bill Cosbys, in the Steve Martins, the Robin Williams, Jim Carrey. All these guys, I caught them doing the Ace Venturas, the Mrs. Doubtfire,
Right.
Beverly Hills Cop 1, 2, 3. You know, like it was that. So I didn't, Richard Pryor, I saw him through the eyes of Superman.
Yeah.
you know, and most probably Harlem Nights. Those kind of films. So then I've gone into stand up, and then I'm now really, trying to look back and see who are the stand ups, and people start talking to me about these guys. Now I'm watching their stand ups, and I'm like, oh, these guys started as comedians, and they became because I wasn't into stand up comedy. So for me, growing up, yes, I played parts in sort of extracurricular activities in school. So I was part of the school choir, the school band. I used to play the drums in school. I was always into that, but it was nothing major. It was just what you did in what we call secondary school, and also college, which you guys call high school.
Right.
So when I got to university, is actually when the actual comedy started per se. I was part of what we call the African Caribbean Society. So it's just a sort of fraternity, but more like just a chill vibe every week that, African and Caribbean students will get together and we'll do debates to kind of distract us away from the pressures of academics, and we put together a showcase. And this particular showcase had invited different universities to come down. There was a fashion show, there were singers, rappers, live band performing, and I was the spokesperson for the ACS, we called it. And it just so happened that we couldn't afford a comedian at the time, a very popular comedian. So they had asked me, being a spokesperson who was used to holding debates and stuff, and I only did this because I wanted to add to my CV. My dad always said to me, do stuff outside of your course, so once you're finished, it will look good on your CV when looking for a job. So this is what I was doing. But then they were like, you're really good as a spokesperson. Why don't you host this showcase? I was like, yeah, it could be fun. Now, I didn't realize what the pressure I put myself in, the mountain I had to climb until the day when 800 students turned up. And I said, what are you all doing? This is not meant to be this serious, man. Yeah. So I started impersonating my friend's uncle, who was Nigerian, right? He was, so I started putting on an accent because we always used to mimic his uncle. He was very loud and he used to talk like this. His English he used to use big words like "I'm flabbergasted." So I thought I'll take that character on, and I maintained this accent throughout the show. I was this character with this very big Nigerian accent. Everybody, welcome to the show. This is going to be a wonderful show. And the next performance is, hey, clap for him. And people would laugh off their seats. And I was like, this is crazy. But in hindsight, I realized it's because a lot of the Africans, especially because, where you're in the country that's predominantly in terms of black communities, Caribbean, we were used to putting on the Caribbean slangs, the Jamaican slang. And all of a sudden, there was this African guy at university, and he's really going for it. And I think it was just a breath of fresh air. And that became the thing. Someone came up to me and was like, yo, can you come and perform at my uni? And I was like, yeah, I don't mind. And then they asked me how much I charged. I was like, charge? Well, I'm going to get back to you. Thank you. My people will call your people. I had to go and create my people, man.
Yeah.
And literally, I ended up performing at different universities, putting on the accent and dancing, using my Congolese background with my dancing and stuff. So it was just a thing that went on until I finished university. I got myself a job. Someone was like, you know what? You have a lot of funny stories when you're hosting showcases. Why don't you come to this comedy club and just tell these stories? And that's what I did. I'll tell stories, remix urban songs into African with African versions of any song that was out there at the time, whether it was R&B, hip hop, whatever, and that's when stand up was born. I did it at a comedy show, people laughed their heads off, and I was invited the week after, and it just was like that. And a year later, I won Best Newcomer at the Black Entertainment Comedy Awards in England.
Wow.
That's sounds like a long-winded story, but that's literally how it happened. It was very organic. It was never a thing I want to become a comedian. It just was.
How did your parents take it that you wanted to be a comedian?
Man, bro, I'm coming from a culture where it's like the reason why we've left Congo to bring you here is so you can get an education that you would never have, to get the job that you wouldn't have access to back home. So you better make use of it. You better go for the big money. You better go for the lawyer, the accountant, the doctor. I mean, if you're not going to be a doctor, at least be a vet, for goodness sake. You sat long enough in the kitchen watching your mom cut chicken. Like, come on. Like, you can do the vet. I think it was signed, sealed, and delivered when that happened. When I told my parents I was going to study, a major in media technology, my dad was like, fantastic. At least you want to get into television and production, and that still sounds good to me. And I'd finished university, and my sister had seen me perform as a stand-up. I told my dad, and my dad was just like, what? Like, we brought you all the way from Congo for you to be a clown? Like, you went to study to be a clown? I mean, if we knew this was the case, we would have left you in Congo and brought your cousins. That would have been fine. Like, maybe your cousin would have made more use. My dad was confused. He refused to go and see me perform. My mom being the loving mom, she had a very more diluted version of how she approached it. She was just really concerned about my health and well-being. And I'm just like, yo, I'm having a ball. I'm a rock star. Like, I'm having a great time out here, in my little new niche of comedy. But my dad was really like, you're kidding yourself. But mind you, I first started working at a television company, right? A new launched African TV station. It was exciting times. And then I started appearing on the channel where I was working in the background, where I was the editor who would, kind of produce the shows. My boss at the time had seen a performance of mine. I said, you know what? I'm going to give you a half an hour slot where you could just chat nonsense in front of the camera. And
wow.
That went on for a year. Yeah, literally. So this was a brand new channel. There weren't a lot of African, stations on our sort of on our waves. So at the time, it was really popular. My parents would watch at home. That kind of bought me time, to be fair. Africans, hey, my son is on television.
Right.
They could use that for a year maybe, just to buy time. It stops people from saying, what is he doing with his degree? They could just be like, he's on television, he's producing, but he's also actually in front of the camera. So those things bought my parents time until they found that there's no money coming in. And they were just like, yo, listen, we can only watch you on TV so many times, and then it makes no sense. What are you doing? So that happened. And my dad was just like, he was just lost and disappointed. Then there was one time, it was a long story, but I'd actually gone into a hospital. I was in hospital for a while.
Oh, wow.
And and it coincided with a time where I was meant to do this big showcase, and I couldn't do it anymore. And my dad saw how miserable I got just for missing that one showcase, bro. And I think he saw in my eyes that this guy is really serious. Like, he is serious. And because I'd captured the soft side, I had this window of opportunity where my dad, after I came out of hospital and I was recovering, and then I was, called to do a showcase, and my dad came to watch me. Mind you, I'm 22 at the time. So my dad's come to watch me perform. And I think, he was overwhelmed. And I have this joke that I'm always like, my dad was watching me and he was the only one not laughing, right? He was just nodding. Every time people laughed, he would be nodding. And at the end of the show, I asked him, did you not enjoy the show? And I was like, yes, I enjoyed it. It was fantastic. I was like, but you didn't laugh. Like, where's your sense of humor? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's laughing. And my dad said, no. I said, but you were just nodding. He goes, no, the reason why I was nodding is because I was counting the people. 20 pounds, 20 pounds, 20 pounds. And it was like 20 pounds times 300 people. Hey, this is a good career.
There it is.
Yo, that was it. That was the moment my dad became my biggest fan.
Man, that's so real. So usually comedy, incorporates so many different real life experiences that are high times and low times of your life. Where does your comedy come from?
Do you know what? A lot of people talk about comedians and they're like, oh, comedians are inspired by dark stories and stuff like that. Yo, man, I will keep it 100 with you. I'm a happy child, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I was a happy child. I'm still a happy child. I was fortunate enough. I mean, look, in my comedy, I will talk about Congo and its attachment to the wars and stuff like that, but I didn't experience that. I experienced looting. I experienced that South South Central Compton vibe, maybe a little bit. I experienced a couple of gunshots. I've heard it. I didn't see anyone holding guns, but But I think the narrative that Congo's attached to, I've taken advantage of, to kind of, it's almost like a mockery. And when people take it in, they're like, oh my God, it's just a funny side to kind of take away the stereotypes as well of how my country is looked upon. So when I came over to the UK, it was the same thing. I was sheltered. I grew up in a family. Both parents were around. I went through my education. I had good friends. But I think the moment of how Africans were looked upon, how our culture was looked upon, where it was predominantly Caribbean, and there was a moment here in the UK, being African was not cool, because constantly on the TV station there's commercials about this child in Africa who has a fly on his nose and has not drank water for 5 days,
Right.
has to walk 4 hours to go and get water. That's how they saw us. So their thing was, this is why you come to this country, because you have to walk this far, because there's gunshots everywhere, because like you don't have access to hospitals, you live in the jungle. Like there was all these and people still think like that now, to be fair, but it was really heavy on that side, and a lot of young Africans were really ashamed to stick their neck out for being African. So I used that. It was that where I used that in my comedy to break down the stereotype, to actually aggressively show that no, we're not like that. No, you don't get kidnapped as soon as you get to Nigeria. You don't just land in Nigeria and suddenly they kidnap you. Right. Nigerians are not that aggressive. They're not that. They're not that confused. They actually plan it first. Do you understand? We're not that stupid. We plan it well. Then we take you, and we take you on a nice tour. Little things like that. They just needed to understand.
A little safari tour. No, that's real.
We take a little. So yeah, you will go. Listen, I'm like, yo, I know Timon and Pumbaa. Those are my neighbors, man. Like, come on, like they made it and they stopped talking to me. It's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was those. It was being ashamed of your culture. It was.
Right.
But my comedy is inspired from my family. Like I talk about my family a lot. I talk about my upbringing a lot. I talk about my environment. Being a British Congolese, being brought up in England, but still being instilled with the Congolese principles and culture and the African principles. I talk about being African in general, whether you're from East, West, North, South. The challenges that comes with about how we can turn those into a happiness, how our culture is vibrant.
Right. And that's what I love most about you. You seem to be very centered in being your authentic self. And I was going to ask you about this because you talked to me about this in New York, about the importance of being you. And so how important is it for you to remain your authentic self and fiercely embrace your Congolese culture on stage and in life?
Yo, man, we had this conversation during lunch,
right?
That time, and I clearly, and I always say you can only be, you will always be a diluted version of somebody else, but you'll always be 100% untamed version of yourself. So a lot of people want to change for society, and I believe that you should never change for society, because there will come a time when society changes for you, and you will be highly disappointed. You'll be the loser. And we've seen it happen over and over again. The Black Panther situation most recently, has been the best reference point, where all of a sudden everybody wants to wear what you guys call dashikis, whether it's kente. They want to wear that traditional wear to the cinema. Everybody wants to say Wakanda forever. But, you go back a couple of months and no, it wasn't Wakanda forever.
Yeah.
It was definitely Wakanda for never, so that's an example of standing your ground, and, your time will come. The world goes round, man, for a reason. Right. So I think for me, when I'm on stage and I'm representing Africa and I'm talking about being African, whether it's fun of Caribbeans, whether it's fun of Norwegian, whether it's fun of Americans, they truly appreciate it. I was on a 5-city tour recently with Lauren Hill and Nas, across California. That's so huge. We did the Bay Area, on the Powernomics tour. We did the Bay Area. I believe we did Hollywood Bowl. At one stage, we went to San Francisco. Then we went up to Seattle. And it was just like I went on stage as the African who lives in Britain and talking about those challenges and how we look at America, and people got it. I taught people how to use African sound effects as a point of conversation. Little things like that. Yeah. They got it, but that's because I didn't go on that stage being like, oh, these people have got to laugh. I went on that stage saying I'm using laughter as a reference, as a message, as a surfboard to get my message across. And because of that, my currency doesn't lie on people have to laugh when I perform. My currency lies on people will learn something new about Africa once I perform. So that's what's important. I don't rely on laughter. That's not what it's about. And people will be like, but you're a comedian. That's what it's about. People pay their money. But that's how much I believe in my culture, bro. That my culture will always provide the spirituality and the momentum and the substance for me to get what I need to go for. But I need to put the culture first. I can't put the craft first. It's important.
Right. And I think that's probably the key to your success because you have that authenticity and that substance behind your
Yes, sir.
comedy.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's not just, something you do, it's who you are and you've been able
Yeah,
to embrace your authentic
yeah,
self and teach
yeah.
along the way.
Yo, man,
And
that's how we met. That's how we met.
right.
If you think about it, my authenticity, my consistency, my loyalty, to my brand and to my principles is meeting you was one of the results.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be called upon to connect with my brother Luol Deng and Ant, and and eventually meet you. They saw that in me. Hence why they wanted to connect and make some stuff work, and hence why we ended up at this lunch. And that's what it's about. And it's the same reason why I ended up on tour with Lauren Hill. It's the same reason why I get called constantly to have a conversation on platforms like the CNN. Same reason why I'm in going across the motherland, doing a travel show, about a holiday destination across the motherland. That's a moment of pride for me. But I think even for my parents, for it to come from, this boy went to university, finished his course, we wanted him to be this, but all of a sudden he's this guy who's actually constantly representing the one place that we left, and he's making it better for us to go back to. Come on, man. Like,
Right.
that's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Wow, man. Well, I respect you, man. And there's something else I wanted to ask you about a
Yeah.
particular experience that you had with the O2 Arena. I
Yeah.
think at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, I was just kind of just reading up a few things, but you were
Yeah.
doing pretty well in your comedy career, and you still are selling out shows. And you approached the O2 Arena to do a show, and they said, by quote, "No way." Tell me about that story, because later on, you got a chance to perform at that same arena.
That's right. So we, going back to being at university, the person I connected with at the time was a year below me, a guy called T. T was a very ambitious man at the time. He was 18, I was 19 when we met. He had this vision of, I've got a live band. They're one day going to perform on live TV. They're going to be like the Roots. He had this vision where now he provided a backbone to my sort of just pure love for being on stage. And we had this structure where, now I would perform, he would sort of quote unquote manage the situation. And that's how we grew. We finished university, our name was going right around just because we were making a lot of noise. This African kid who loves going on stage and performing and dancing and saying funny African stories. And then that grew into us having this niche where we could sell out events, 600 capacity, 800 capacity. Then we got to the Indigo. And the Indigo was around the time Michael Jackson passed away, funny enough.
Wow.
And the Indigo was ultimately, the Indigo 2 at the O2 Arena was ultimately an after party venue. So it wasn't a performance venue, and they might do one or two concerts there, but ultimately it was an after party venue. Once Michael Jackson passed away, it became heavily available for just showcasing because, there was a lot of free dates as well around that time. So we had done shows at the Indigo, and we had done, sold. It's like a 2,000 capacity venue, and we had sold it out a few times, and then we were like, yo, listen. And of course, the pace of which we were going in terms of my career was really fast, just because I was coming from a different angle. I was making a lot of noise from a different angle to every other comic, so the interest was there. But then it still wasn't big enough for us to be like, for even an O2 Arena to approach us like that. But we were like, let's go for it. Let's make some more noise. So we approached the O2 and we're like, we want to do the O2. And they were like, no way, you crazy. What are you talking about? Look at the dates. Look at the people available for these days. Look at the people who are performing here for the rest of the year. You've seen them on your TV. You heard them on your radio. You've seen them on their world tour. You are nothing like that. Go away.
Wow.
But it wasn't in a rude way. But it was just like, how dare you? But then they were like, you know what? Because they kind of thought maybe it was a fluke, they said, we're giving you 3 or 4 months to sell out another Indigo too. Let's see. Literally, they know that we've got quite a big following and the substance in what we do. We sold that event out. And once we sold that event out, no, O2 is the parent home for the Indigo. So the conversation was had, and all of a sudden it was like, do you know what? This could actually also be a good story. I also believe till now it was never said up front, but I believe for them it felt like a good story for them. It looked good. It almost felt like a charity handout for an African kid,
Right.
or a black guy.
Yeah.
I didn't mind what angle came out as long as it said yes. But it was just like come and perform. But of course, it also came with some form of belief because no one else at the time on my side could really come and have that conversation with them. So this we put out. I believe it was end of 2009. No, January 2010. We put out an advert. Now, mind you, a lot of artists that would perform there, whether they were musicians or comedians, they will put out a date, and maybe 2 months later sold out. Some of them a week later it's done. You know how it is.
Right.
So we put out a date. It was very low key at the time, so it was just a subtle approach, which was just like to the O2 members, and they saw a lot of tickets being sold. Then it was announced, and once it was announced, 1,000 tickets were sold within like 24 hours. Wow. It was just a crazy way. So they were like, oh, and I, for me it was a shocker too. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then we just had a period of nothing, like for a couple of months.
Yeah.
Not one ticket was moving, and suddenly the O2 are coming up to say we've not seen any tickets move, and they're kind of on that angle. They were proven right. So here we go, you guys, you're gonna have to cancel the event. And I was just like, no, we can't. My whole team was like, we can't. We're explaining to them that, oh yeah, a lot of our people are black and they taking their time with this ticket thing. You guys, what we're about to be to this venue, you guys have never seen. So you got to be patient. So we had that with them. We thank God for their understanding. Closer towards the time, the PR machine kicked in. I remember the BBC saying the most famous comedian you've never heard of. I remember be called into some channels and just being so not kind of humiliated, but it was almost like, what are you doing? Like, are you crazy? What's this? And we turned every interview into a positive, every interview into an inspirational story, and that got people really excited. And people, I think, wanted me to win, bro.
Right.
It was one of those unique promo runs for 9 months where we got 13,000 people, and it was mayhem. It was mayhem, yo. It was the best, probably the best day of my career till today, and not because we had 13,000 people, because we actually went into a space that you have to understand. My first showcase, my first one man show was 2007, and 3 years later I'm doing an arena. It hit people on the head. It changed the narrative. It changed the way people respected what was coming out of my mouth when it came to Africa. People wanted to know now, what are you really about? Because this is certainly not just because you're funny,
Yeah.
That's what it was.
What would you say is the one thing or a couple of things that attribute to your success as a comedian and as a person in life? And how do you define success?
I think I'll start with defining success. I think I define success, there isn't a point or a mark that's like, hey, I'm successful. I don't believe that. I believe that at different stages of your life, you are trying to achieve different things. And the people around you are able to celebrate that with you because you're carrying a community. I come from, and you can relate being an African. I come from a principle of tribe.
Yes.
Community. When we were in Congo, I truly remember if I was walking around alone and I did some madness and my mom and dad were not there, the neighbor could literally pull me by the ear and drag me home, or could pull me up on stuff. That was normal, and people looked out for each other. It's a community vibe. And I come from a big family as well, so that even added to it. So for me, when my people around me are being well represented and they feel a sense of satisfaction in what I'm doing, that's success.
Wow.
When I feel and I truly stand by this next statement, in that your gift is not necessarily your purpose. For some people, it is. Some people have a gift of being a footballer or a soccer player, and they just need to score goals so their team can win. and that's all they want to live for. That's all they've done, and that's it, and that's fine. But then there's people like myself where I don't know where the spirit of laughter came from, where I will open my mouth and say things where I think it's just mediocre. It's normal conversation, but people are laughing their heads off. This is beyond the stage. But then I see that as a gift. That's something that's been given to me. Now my purpose is what I do with that gift.
Right.
What I do with that laughter. So that's where the success comes from. Because if I'm not using that gift properly, it can be taken away. If I chill with it, it can be taken away. So where I'm now I can make people laugh. Okay, how about I go on stage, as people are laughing, use that to say, yo, the image that you have of Africa, it's a lie, Yo, do you not actually know that we Caribbeans and people from the motherland and those in America, the Africans in America, the Africans in India, we're literally the same people. We just have a different narrative, which has resulted in us thinking it was so different. Oh, yo, you guys know that I'm British, right? But I feel so Congolese, and this is why. Can you guys understand why you look at us as being these aggressive guys that are different to you, and you don't understand, but these are the reason why. As they are laughing, it's almost like feeding a child with a spoon or just actually using an injection. You're gonna find different ways of making sure that they get the nutrition that they need, bro.
Right.
That's where I'm at with success, like being able to use that gift, and actually, I think the little things that count. For example, going back to what you asked before, the success, little thing that for me that sort of makes sense or counts. Like for example, in my career is when I'm able to be recognized for being the person I actually want to be.
Right.
When there's a new crop of comedians who are coming in, and they're young comedians, and they are proud to put on the African accent. People just see it as an African accent, but it's an identity, man.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? When you hear Busta Rhymes suddenly switch into some patois, that's an identity.
Right.
Like when you hear Nicki Minaj do the same thing, when you hear Rihanna do that, that's an identity. So, like, it's the same thing when you hear certain comedians, like Cedric the Entertainer, who are now switching to his country talk. That's his identity. That's him going back to his roots. He can give you Hollywood, but he can also give you country.
Right.
So when I've got these young Africans coming through and they want to put on an accent and they want to dance and they say, yo, I'm dancing like Eddie Kadi. Yo, man, those are highlights of career. Those are reference points of saying I'm doing something right.
Yeah, I think you're really allowing a lot of people to be free into who they are and embracing their identity, because
absolutely,
as we know, like being African, there's a negative stigma and there's so many negative perceptions on what that is. So you're definitely trailblazing opportunities and ways for people to be free. And there's a quote that says, as you let your light shine, you liberate others to do the same.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm seeing through your life, and I hope and I pray that you continue doing that. You're definitely a blessing to many. I got a couple of last minute questions, and I just want to, it's quick questions. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. What does African mean to you?
African means roots. It means identity. It means substance. It means a definition. It defines the world. Being African defines the world. We cannot downplay that at all. We've seen it over and over again. Now with the rise of social media, we cannot ignore it. Being an African and being boldly with it makes people go, yo, I want a piece of that. 100%.
Right. When is the time you feel most at home or at peace?
When I'm at home. Yo, man, when I'm at home with my family. I actually, and more than that, when I go to Africa, bro, when I'm in Ghana, when I'm in Congo, and the wind is different, the sun is different, it tastes different, it feels different. But when I'm just able to be around people who have nothing to do with my actual job, and it's like being refueled, it's like being recharged. That's when I feel most comfortable.
What do you know for sure?
Wow.
Yeah.
My family loves me. That's one thing I'm certain about. I'm certain about my family loves me. I can't say any more than that, bro.
What is one book that has deeply impacted your life?
Oh, A Purpose-Driven Life.
Yeah, one of my favorites as well. It's just kind of a funny quirky question. What is your favorite app on your phone?
Oh, you want me to lie, mate? Are you trying to make me lie, my guy?
The Eddie Kadi app.
Yo, man. Yeah, coming out very soon. The cinema near WhatsApp. It's WhatsApp. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think that's what I use the most. I think that's my favorite app.
Yeah.
And also because you know what? I'm now able to connect with my family so much more with that. I underestimate how much more I'm able to just talk to my parents like throughout the day. You know, I spend time with my parents throughout the day. I can just come on and see a message from my dad. I can send pictures of myself, of my daughter, because we don't often see each other sometimes. So my parents can just see what's going on with her. I can see what's going on with them. And think that those things are important,
Most definitely. Well, Mr. Eddie Kadi, I don't want to hold you no longer. I know we've been on this for about 39 minutes, but I do appreciate your time and all that you're doing, and definitely honored and humbled just to have this conversation and share it with the world. Thank you for having me on this, bro, man. It's been insightful, man. I learn about myself more and more sometimes when I do stuff like this, so I really appreciate the convo, my friend. For sure. What's next for you? What you got going on? Oh, what have I got going on? That's a good question. So I am actually working on this. So it's called My African Passport. So it's a travel show. So I'm when we've been to Liberia, we're showcasing Africa as a holiday destination. So it's about going to different parts of Africa and showing people that when you go, this is where you can stay. This is how much fun you can have. These are all the things you can do. So we're looking to explore Southern Africa soon. So places like Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And of course, I've also got a regular radio show with a guy called DJ Neptizzle, who's a Vietnamese Afrobeats DJ, one of my closest friends. Nice. So, we're regularly interviewing different people from all walks of life. So that's what's keeping me busy at the moment. What are some ways that people can reach out to you? Man, they can go to my Instagram, which is Comedy Kadi. It's literally my name, but with a C-O-M. I try to be smart with it and by, incorporate the comedy and the Kadi in it. Nice. So COMEDDIEKADI. That's on my Instagram. And just Eddie Kadi on every other Facebook, Twitter, or you can just Google me. I exist somewhere along those along the online world. I definitely exist there. Man, well, once again, appreciate you, sir. Thank you, boss. This concludes our episode of Africa and Us. Thank you for listening. Be sure to share this episode and follow the journey on social media at Nate Araya. Be encouraged.